We're going. Bye.
Hi, Maggie.
Hi, Jean. How are you?
Hey, Mo. I'm great. How are you?
Good. There we go, I think. Welcome, everyone. This is America's kick-ass career coach, Mo Faul. I'm here with my fellow coach, Jean Callahan. Hello, Jean. How are you today?
Hey, Mo. I'm great. How are you?
Good. So I resisted wearing sleeveless because I didn't want to brag about how great the weather is here in Florida.
I did not.
You're gonna be bragalicious.
Bragalicious. Let's do it.
Oh, right. Awesome. Well, today I wanted to start a new tradition. Jean's been with me for a year. We've had a couple of webinars and posts and things that we've done together. We're going to come on the regular here talking about my blog post. And this week it's about what to ask your boss now. And here's a dilemma, Jean. What if you don't have a boss? What if you're either self-employed or unemployed? I think this question should go to the self. That's what I think. I think this question should go to the self. You know, Coulter and I were here Friday talking about the three main hangups that we see when we talk to women on the career clarity call. It was confidence, it was clarity, or having too much confusion, and it was really having too much gremlin mindset. And those are a lot of the things I talk about on my webinar. But regardless of what's going on inside, and we'll actually talk about some of this stuff, Jean, because you're so great with the mindset and reframing stuff. Regardless of how you feel inside, it's time to step into your power and talk to your boss and ask her, see how I'm going to do that today, ask her a few big questions that could impact the rest of your career trajectory. But Jean, before we get into the questions that we should ask our boss, let's talk a little bit about how we proceed with things when we're not feeling totally kick-ass. And by the way, before you get into that answer, I want to say hello to Kimmy and Melissa and Coulter and Rena. Some of our faves are here joining us, and Tracy. So how do we step into our power with our boss when we're maybe not totally feeling boss ready? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's.
What do you say?
Well, I say first, and yeah, are you talking to me?
I am talking to you. Yes, indeed.
First and foremost, it's about getting to that place within ourselves where we feel empowered to speak our truth. Right. We talk a lot in the program about, opening our throat chakra and asking for what we need. And so it really gets to doing those things for yourself, the self-care, all of those things to make us feel empowered so that we can go and have that conversation.
Let's give a few examples for folks. We've got some folks here who know us, know our work. Hey, Rena, good morning to you on the other side of the world. How's Tuesday treating you? And Tracy and Coulter and Melissa, who's traveled hither and yon to go pursue her big dream job. So let's talk about, if I'm not feeling totally kick-ass and ready to have that conversation with my boss, and I want to get ready, and I want to have that internal power or confidence that maybe I have to manufacture, let's talk about some ways to do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think the first thing is self-talk, right? What stories are we telling ourselves about ourselves?
Indeed. So if we are kind of like, oh, my boss will never listen, she'll never pick up the call, she won't make the appointment. If we have all of that going on, we're likely the predictors of the future. What's a better way for us to do some self-talk on that when that's really not quite working?
Right. Yeah. So it's about the story is, wow, there are so many opportunities out there. And my boss, she is going to be so open and receptive to what I have to say and to the opportunities that I see for myself. And it's going to be an amazing conversation. It's going to go exactly the way I want it to. It's going to be easy because life is easy for me.
It's going to be easy. So instead of building up this big gosh darn obstacle in front of us, which is what we tend to do when we're not totally feeling 100% powerful, we tend to build up this big barrier in front of us. I can never get over that. So we tend to think, hey, Shauna, we tend to think in terms of what we can't overcome. And so if we say, life is easy and everything always works out for me, my favorite phrase on the planet Earth, and I'm trying to keep my little notes here handy. So if we're not totally feeling that way and we can only feel this big obstacle, just saying that life is easy and everything always works out for me, and I'm going to have this rocking conversation with my boss. In my blog, I talk about a woman, a client of mine, who had this conversation with her boss, and it led her to eventually leading the company. Because when she got really clear from her boss that there was no more opportunity at that company she was at for 19 years, she then felt empowered to step up into her own power. You know what she was doing, Jean? And we see this so many times. She was literally giving her career to her company, saying, company, could you please drive this for me? And we don't realize how easy it is to give over that power, but she had done that for the better of the 19 years she was there. They moved her from this department, that department, start this up, start that up. So she was stimulated and interested, but she felt that there was so much more for her. When her boss said, sorry, we're really not going to build your division, and this is the end of the road for you. We don't really see anything more. She was at first shocked and mortified, and then she was motivated. Yes. So talk about a powerful reframe. Tell me a little bit about what probably went on inside of her in order for her to have that reframe.
Well, let's see. So for her to have that reframe, she had to first get emotional about it. She had to really feel the fire in her that this is something that I want. This is something that's going to enrich me and is a way that I can make a meaningful contribution. And so she had to get to that point first emotionally to be able to then physically have that conversation.
Yeah. And then when her boss said, no, I don't think so, there's nothing here for your future. And then she was able to turn that around and motivate herself to, one, hire a coach, moi, two, start to dive into looking for a job, which she hadn't done in 19 years. That's a long time to be out of the interview and job market. But you know what? Together, with my coaching and her motivation, we were able to get her a ridiculously wonderful, beautiful job that she's still thanking me for helping her do a year and a half later. Tell me about that powerful reframe that she was getting herself into in order to be motivated. So tell me a little bit about what goes on inside of someone's head when they turn a negative situation like that around into something positive and motivating.
Yeah, Mo, can you just repeat like the last probably 10 seconds? Because my internet apparently is unstable and you cut out just a smidge.
Yeah, just wanted you to explain a little bit when this particular client went from having a negative discussion with her boss to a powerful motivation for her to seek something outside of this company she was with for 19 years. Tell me a little bit about what went inside of her in order to motivate her to move forward rather than to get depressed and shut down and feel sorry for herself.
Right. Yes. So I think the big thing is, again, the self-talk and to be mindful of what are the thoughts that I'm thinking right now. And when we have a negative thought that comes in, or maybe a limiting belief or a gremlin, as we lovingly call them, to just put herself in the observer role and notice and say, oh, isn't that interesting? This thought came in, and not let that limiting belief or that thought, that negative energy take you down and just take you for a ride, right? Because we have control. We get to choose our thoughts each and every moment of every day. And that's how we get to create a reality.
Every moment. And you know what, Jean, as you're talking about this, I'm getting super excited because, as you know, in our kick-ass coaching program, in the private Facebook group we have for the women who are in that program, there are some women who are totally getting this. They are totally getting being the observer of their emotions rather than being sucked into their emotions. And you know, the key to success really is are we managing our emotions? Because when we let a company take charge of our career, or when we let a situation take us down a path that doesn't feel good, or any situation that moves us in a direction that just doesn't feel right and empowering, we're not in charge of our emotions. We're not managing our state. So being the observer is really a fantastic way to do that. Can you dive into exactly how someone gets into that? And then I'll get into the powerful questions to ask your boss.
Yeah. So how do we get into the observer role? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. My personal belief, first off, is our bodies are amazing indicators of where we are emotionally.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, the limiting belief or the gremlin mindset, it'll come in and we won't notice it like right away. And when we notice, like, we feel tightness in our chest, or we may feel like a pit in our stomach or something, that's a really good indicator that, hey, emotionally something is not like totally kick-ass and in alignment right now.
Yes.
So that's my number one go-to, is checking in with the body. And like, this doesn't feel good, because the lower vibrational emotions don't feel great.
Yeah. Right. And then when we can back ourselves away from the experience and be the experiencer and the observer, rather than, so if we feel angry, rather than owning the anger as our personhood, it's more that we are observing that we're angry rather than being angry.
Exactly.
When we let it become our personality, that's when it takes over, and we're no longer the observer. We are actually locked into the experience.
Yes, beautifully said. And I think another way to put that would be that our emotions don't define us. That's what you said. Our emotions are not us. It's a temporary feeling state that we come into and move through.
Yes, right. So here's the questions, folks. Here's the questions you need to ask your boss now. And so before you ask your questions to your boss, the first thing you need to do is set up an appointment. This is not something that you want to send over text or over an email. So if you're an introvert and you're likely to say, oh, can I just text my boss? Personal, face-to-face meeting with the boss. She's going to have time for you because you're important to her. You report to her. You're important. I want you to totally own that. And the way that we suggest that you say it is, I would like 15 minutes of your time this week to discuss my future. I'm planning my next new year, and I want to have a productive conversation with you. Let me repeat that so you guys can take notes on this. Hello, boss. I would like 15 minutes of your time this week to discuss my future. I'm planning my next year, or you could say new year, and I want to have a productive conversation with you. I don't know any boss who would shy away from having a productive conversation. And I think the key word there is that word, productive. I don't think any boss wants to sit down with someone who reports to them and just have a non-directed conversation. So if you come with the first ask of, I'm planning on next year, I'm planning on a new year, I'm planning on a fresh start, and I want to have a productive conversation with you, and say 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be hours. Sometimes if something like this comes across us and we're asked by someone who reports to us, we're thinking, oh God, it's going to be hours long. Make sure 15 minutes, make sure it's about the new year, make sure it's a productive conversation. So those are the three key elements in the ask. And yes, that ask can be over the telephone. You don't have to ask necessarily in person, but then get that meeting scheduled. And then in the meeting, and Jean, maybe we can do a little role playing here.
We do that a lot, don't we?
Right. Question number one. What role can you see for me this coming year that will allow me to leverage my talents and bring value to the company? And if you guys aren't writing this down or can't write this down, please go to my blog at mofaul.com, hit blog, or maybe Kimmy will post the exact link to this blog, because this is a blog that I have shared on several occasions. So what role can you see for me this coming year that will allow me to leverage my talents and bring more value to the company? So Jean, you were a boss. If one of your folks asks you this question, what types of things are you going to talk to her about?
Oh, great question. I'm probably going to talk to her about I'm going to ask her questions in return. Where would you like to see yourself going?
Yes.
What new initiatives and projects have you been working on, or do you have new ideas of different projects or initiatives to implement that you would like to see come to fruition? And can you tell me about that?
Yeah. How about some talents or skills that you might have, dear person who reports to me, that maybe I haven't seen yet or that you would like to express next year?
Beautiful. Yes. Yeah.
That would be a real winner. And then when you go through that question, the next question, which is the big one, how can I grow in the organization? And just ask point blank, how can I grow in the organization? And for those of you listening here, I want to say a few things about growth. If you're not growing in your current organization, you are going behind. You are moving backwards if you're not growing. You might think you're stuck. You might think you're stagnant, but I will tell you what, your company, even if it's downsizing, it's expanding in many ways. And if you're not expanding and growing, then you're going backwards. And we see this sometimes in our program, Jean, where we have women who are in companies that are kind of shrinking or starting to lay off folks, and they come to us because they're looking for opportunities to start structuring a career strategy. And they don't know how to do that because they've never done it and no one's ever pointed them in that direction. And that's a lot of what we do with women to structure their career strategy. If you don't have room to grow in your organization, or your boss is going to be there forever or whatever, which is very rare that that happens, but sometimes it does, you need to structure how you're going to grow in the organization, even if it means not necessarily growing upwards, but maybe growing outwards, maybe using some new skills, maybe participating in committees or projects that you haven't participated in. Perhaps it might even mean going into voluntary aspects of things that your company's involved with. Maybe they do Habitat for Humanity or do a food drive or things like that. And perhaps you may have shied away from that because you're just too tired and you work too hard. So make sure that you're talking about growth with your boss year end, best time ever to do it. I don't care if you're on a non-calendar year, fiscal year, or you do annual reviews at your hire date or whatever. It's a good benchmark milestone for yourself, thinking it's the end of the year. I should have some productive conversations. And you know what? We're talking here, Jean, about having a conversation with your boss. You know what? Have a conversation with your partner.
Yes.
Have a conversation with yourself. Where are we going next year, Mo? Yeah, right. The ultimate boss. Where are we going next year? And you know, because we're going to do this not only with our grad group, but also really emphasize this in our kick-ass program. But it is time to set goals for 2018. It is time to have conversations with your boss, with your partner, perhaps other family or friends. Maybe there's a friend you've been wanting to go on vacation with and you guys just haven't gotten around to it. Call up that friend and say, friend, is this the year we're going to go on that vacation or what? Let's set a date. Let's figure it out. Let's take action. Let's get excited. Let's do something. Let's expand and move and grow, and let's take some action that feels great.
Yes. I like to call that intentional action.
Love it.
Action towards what we intend to experience.
Yes, indeed. So if you're having that conversation with yourself, Jean, what are the types of things that we should be asking ourselves for growth and just strategically thinking about our lives? Because we are the driver in the driver's seat. We're the CEO of our lives. What types of questions should we be asking ourselves?
Yeah, we should be asking ourselves, I think, am I in a place where I can show up fully, where I can show up authentic, where I can use all of my natural skill sets and abilities and talents and experience or not? And what is the best place for me, the best avenue for me to be able to show up fully for myself? That would be my first question.
Yeah. So that would include personal environment. It would include work environment. It would include home environment.
Yeah.
And the friends that we surround ourselves with. You know, I always talk about this and who we surround ourselves with. The top 5 people we hang out with significantly, not even just significantly, they define who we are. The 5 people we spend the most time with define who we are. So guess what, folks? If you work with people who you're like, there's a lot of time spent at work. Got to make sure that you're hanging out with people that are expanding you, that are allowing you to really be all that you can be. And I don't mean allow, but I just mean an environment around people who are going to appreciate all that you bring to the table and that you can fully be your expanded self. That's the key to life. The key to life is that freedom of knowing that you can be all that you can be.
Yeah.
Jean, just on the downside, let's just say that this conversation might not go so well, or maybe the boss doesn't show up, or maybe the boss says, you know what, I don't even have plans for myself. And, how dare you ask plans about you? Let's talk about some things that we might be able to do to make sure that isn't as disastrous or as negative as it might otherwise be.
Yeah, great. So if the boss doesn't show up or doesn't take the meeting, we can walk away from that experience again in the observer role and say, okay, so what was the lesson in this for me? What was it that I brought to the table that maybe it wasn't the right kind of energy to bring, or, maybe it's just not time to have this conversation with this particular person.
Mm-hmm. That might also inform how we might consider or think about our future at the company if our boss isn't even really like supporting our direction or our interests.
Yeah. I mean, is it time to change departments? Is it time to change supervisors? Or is it time to start looking for something that's like the next best thing out there?
Right. Just like my client who had a productive meeting, but it was basically not what she expected to hear. And she just used that as fuel for her future. And within 3 months, she was in a beautiful international company, high-level job, making a scad load more of money, feeling at the top of her game, feeling energized and charged, and working with smart, fun people. I actually just met with her and some of her coworkers. She's doing like a women's get-together every couple of months for all the women in her company who are here down in South Florida. And we had a little bit of a gathering. I taught them the elevator pitch. And of course, as you know, the way I do that, it's always a learning experience for the individual to really feel fully that they know who they are. And that was a lot of fun. So it's always great to see clients who have settled into something newer and bigger and totally her dream job. She loves Mondays. She's in that category. I love Mondays. Woo-hoo! She gets to fully express herself. So folks, today it is December 18th. And if you're watching this at some point after December 18th, take it upon yourself to feel the motivation that the time is right for you to go to your boss and ask these powerful questions. What can I do to leverage my gifts and talents in this organization, and how can I grow? Get time with your boss. Ask for 15 minutes. Ask for that time so that you can have a productive conversation and be very directed, very confident, and very centered around this. And of course, Jean, I would be remiss to say that if you don't have a career strategy, or your career hasn't been what you've wanted it to be this year, book a clarity call with my team and I. One of us will take your call. Book it at mofaul.com/strategy. Women's lives have been changed because they took that first step of having that career clarity call. Let's find out the truth about what's really going on that's stopping you from having the awesome career that you want and you deserve. And those calls are so valuable and so wonderful. I love having them. I've done probably thousands of them over the past 3 years. And it's a great opportunity to really go heart to heart with a woman who is just not where they want to be in their career. Maybe there's been a money slide back in the wrong direction. Perhaps there's been some downsizing in their past. Maybe they haven't gotten their career reset back. Women who have relocated with their spouses or through divorces, etc., and their careers have gotten fractured and they haven't quite gotten their full strength back. There's all sorts of scenarios that Jean, that we see in the Kick-Ass group coaching program that we're literally helping women take back their careers, take charge, land their dream jobs, make more money, be better mothers, wives, daughters, sisters. Everything gets better when you know who you are at a deep level.
Yeah. And the better it gets, the better it gets. And then the better it gets.
More.
The better it gets. And that's what we see every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jean, thanks for joining me on this Facebook Live.
Thanks, Mo. It's fun.
Sharing this conversation with you. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And for those of you watching this as a recording, please comment below about your conversations with your boss, or perhaps just sharing maybe some feelings you have about that. And we'd be happy to comment and just kind of prop you up a little bit, because we have faith in you having this conversation to end your year on a totally up note. Know where you're headed for 2018. It's a kick-ass move, folks. And we want you to bring your soul to work so that you are in your dream job. So have that crucial conversation with your boss. Jean, you're awesome. Thanks for being part of the kick-ass team.
Thank you. Thank you. You're awesome too, Mo.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. And
so much awesome and so much kick-ass.
What are you going to do? We'll see you in the kick-ass program, Jean. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.